Hello pilots! Today I would like to dedicate myself to the KR-67 Ifrit, the current multi-role upper class. The Ifrit can't do anything that another airframe can't do, but it can do just about everything better than the others. As a top product, however, it only leaves the sales area in Kremenka if you leave $126 million on the counter. So an Ifrit costs more than 2 tank platoons, but is it worth the price? As usual, let's start with the armament. As an onboard cannon, the Ifrit uses a 27mm gun with 550 bullets in the magazine. The rate of fire of the gun is not as high as that of the Revoker's rotating cannon, but a single hit can do more damage. 550 rounds are also not the world, in contrast to the 750 of the Revoker's cannon, but the higher damage per hit can still enable a good pilot to get a lot of kills with the onboard cannon. He just has to hit. To go into each individual weapon system of the Ifrit would be an extensive list, because the Ifrit can carry almost all weapons available in the game. Excluded are linchpins, AGM-48s, AGM-99s, ALMC-450s, ALND-4s, pile drivers and demolition bombs. Nevertheless, I would like to briefly discuss the different armament slots. In addition to the internal onboard cannon, the Ifrit has 2 internal weapon bays, the front and the rear one. Both can be equipped with the same weapon systems. The selection ranges from radar and infrared guided air-to-air missiles to heavy air-to-ground missiles and bombs. The bomb spectrum ranges from 6 small bombs per shaft to 2 nuclear ones, which has an enormous potential for destruction. But that was just the beginning. Not so long ago, the Ifrit side weapon bays were donated. In these, it can only carry IRM-S2 missiles. However, these are excellent for fending off incoming threats at a distance of 10 kilometers, which increases the Ifrit's ability to defend itself. On the wings, there are the inner and outer wing pylons. The really big weapons can be attached there. For example, the new AAM-35 Scimitar, a radar-guided missile designed for long-range targets, or the ARED anti-radar missile, which fly towards a radar signal and are ideal for destroying radar installations. Or how about a cruise missile? Yes, the Ifrit can carry a total of 2 ASHM-300s and thus serve well when attacking ships. With the GPO-2P auger, it can be used as a bunker buster, and to top it off, it can also carry the new Tasco B missiles. In contrast to the inner pylon, neither AREDs nor Auger 2P can be attached to the outer one. And just like the compass, the Ifrit also has a tailhook, which is useful for landings on aircraft carriers. Currently, only the Hyperion class carrier has an arrestor system, but who knows what's coming. Oh, the Ifrit can also carry nuclear bombs with it, that's for sure. It has 2 engines that can tilt up and down. The engines can also move independently of each other. This allows the Ifrit to perform stable flight even at low speeds and dramatic maneuvers. The engines have an afterburner that enables the Ifrit to fly at supersonic speeds. Although it has 2 engines with an afterburner, the Ifrit cannot keep up with a Revoker in terms of climb rate. The Revoker is also less of an aircraft with 1 engine. It is more of an engine with just enough wing space for it to fly. The Ifrit, on the other hand, is designed to carry an enormous amount of armament. Does this mean that the Revoker is superior to the Ifrit in air combat? Not necessarily. Even though the Revoker can accelerate faster and has a higher climb rate, the Ifrit can dominate in cornering combat. It is more stable at low speeds and can thus draw tighter shots than the Revoker without suffering a stall. If the Ifrit itself gets into the stall, the 2D engines help the pilot to regain control of the fighter jet. In principle, the Ifrit does not require a long runway and can be spawned at airports that have a medium hangar or hardened aircraft shelter. In addition, the Ifrit can also take off and land from a Hyperion-class carrier. Landing on an aircraft carrier can be a big challenge at first, but it is easier when the carrier is in motion. I myself can't say yet that I can now land confidently on an aircraft carrier with an Ifrit, but it works more and more often. The Ifrit has an active radar that covers a cone-shaped area in front of the jet up to a distance of 50 kilometers. Not to mention that your own active radar can be perceived by the enemy, which can make a surprise attack more difficult. With an RCS value without weapons on the wings of 0.0015, it can also be much more inconspicuous than the Revoker. The Revoker has an RCS value of 0.08 if its wings do not carry weapons. This gives the Ifrit excellent stealth characteristics and can make a strong impression as a stealthy messenger. If the enemy succeeds in tracking down the Ifrit and firing at it with a radar-guided missile, the Ifrit can usually take the missile due to its narrowness. For support, it also has an integrated jammer, which confuses the incoming missile and causes it to lose its target lock. Against incoming infrared-guided missiles, the Ifrit can drop a total of 64 infrared flares. Coupled with a reduction in thrust and a resulting cooling of the engines, the incoming missiles quickly lose their target lock-on. So what is the Ifrit good for? The question is wrong because it is very suitable for everything. The question is, what's the catch with the Ifrit? The only disadvantage that the Ifrit brings with it is its enormous price. It usually takes a while for a pilot to accumulate enough money in a running game that he can afford an Ifrit. On top of that, there are always the costs of the armament, which can also be a few million. Of course, you can also take one from the faction's inventory, but this requires rank 4 and a corresponding airframe must be available. Otherwise, the Ifrit can be used in any situation. Of course, it can't carry as many bombs as the Dark Reach or do as igneous reconnaissance as the Medusa, but otherwise it's a good, if not the best choice. What makes the Ifrit unpredictable is not only that it can use different weapon systems from a large arsenal of weapons, it can also carry many at the same time. This allows the Ifrit to carry bombs and at the same time equip itself for an air battle. Or the pilot goes to an extreme and turns the Ifrit into a light bomber or a heavy interceptor escort. If you see an enemy Ifrit in the sky, it is difficult to see what it is up to. If you see several enemy Ifrits in the sky, you should look in a different direction and be quick. The airframe of the Ifrit is not a tank, but it can take several hits. 2 engines are also advantage if one stops working. This helps the Ifrit to return to its own base even if it is damaged. After all, as already mentioned, it is a costly investment. The high price sometimes make it questionable to opt for an Ifrit. This is because other fighter jet airframes are much cheaper, which can lead to a higher efficiency in operations. A few vehicles can also be bombed away by a compass. A corvette can also be sunk by a cricket. That's true. But not as fast as with an Ifrit, not as unnoticed, not as extensive. The Ifrit is sometimes like a descendant of all the other fighter jets of the game on steroids. For me, the Ifrit is the king of the skies. I really like its look, flying it is fun and its versatility offers a lot of variety on its missions. I myself stick to the chicane and get into jets rather rarely. Admittedly, I've only flown an Ifrit once in an escalation game so far. It is simply enormously expensive, and because of my inexperience, I didn't know how to use it properly. I think preliminary considerations regarding the loadout are appropriate, especially since the selection is so large. But with time comes wisdom, and I'm looking forward to being able to use the Ifrit sensibly and effectively. Until then, I do a few more laps in the air and say goodbye with a well-intentioned fly safe.